Okay, fellas, so this is Pycoders Academy Python Focus, and I hope you are loving these videos we have been sharing on this YouTube channel. Thanks for watching and keep subscribing and sharing it with your friends and liking these videos. So I'm Faisal from Pycoders Academy, and today we'll be looking at the introduction to functions in Python. So in our previous video we're looking at loops where we ended with the nested loop. So we said the loops are in three types. We have the for loop, while loop, and the nested loops. Okay, so we have done those loops, and today we'll be looking at the introduction to for loops, and in our next video we will look at the detailed functions, or detailed let's say detailed inspect into the for loops. Okay, so simple here. Okay, so now we will start with the definition of a function. So function is just a block of organized reusable code that is used to perform a single related action. So let me explain this. So a block of organized, so it's a block. So as you know, we have something like for loop. So the for loop is, as we know, the for loop is also a block. So when we have a block like that, then the code inside or beneath that block is tapped, or it's spaced from the starting of the for loop line to, let's say, our code. So it's tapped, and so those codes are tapped, and that means it is inside that block. So it's the same as it applies in different functions. So when you see those tapped codes, then it means it is a block of organized codes, and it's reusable. So as we have here, so a block of organized reusable code, so it is reusable, that is used to perform a single related action. So a function is used for a single related action. So example is, let's say I'm creating a game which includes a certain action. So let's say I have an action saying accelerating, I have an action saying decelerating, I have an action saying braking, stopping. So I can create a single function for a single action. So I have accelerating, then its function. I have braking, then its function. I have this and its function. So that's how functions are used. So it's used for a single related action. So as I said in the car or game explanation, I said accelerating has only one function, then decelerating has also a single function. So simple. Then functions provide a better modularity for your application and a high degree of code reusing. So let's say I have a code which I've been already written. So something like this script here. So let's say in this script I have functions in them, so I can just import them using the concept. I can just import them using the concept from models and use it in my current code. So I can import a function from, let's say, the while loops dot py here, and put it here. So that's how to use those functions as models. So it provide better modularity for your application and a high degree of reusing. So you can import those functions, just a function inside a single Python file. You can reuse it for many projects in your let's say in your Python project. Okay, so simple. So built-in function, we have two types of functions. We have the built-in function, and we have the user-defined function. So the built-in functions are what we know: the print functions, the input functions, the range function, and so on. Then we can also have the user-defined function, which is written or defined by the user. So it is the functions written by the user. So as we want to learn these functions, we are going to apply this user defined function. So we will be writing our own functions to make our code look easier and reusable. Okay, so simple. Now let's look at how to define functions. So let me just define functions. Okay, functions. Okay, so you want to define functions. So functions are just basically defined by just using the keyword def. So it's vary from Python to other programming languages. So it's in some programming languages the keyword is function, but in Python it is def. So we just do def, then the function name. So in the function name should not contain spaces. It should, when you have space, you just bridge it with an underscore, and it should be lower cases. So I can have something like first underscore function here. Then you have to bring parentheses. So this parenthesis will contain your parameters. So I will explain the parameters in just a bit. Then you bring a colon here, then your code will come. So any code in Python which is valid, you can put it here. So print, then I will say hello world here. Okay, hello world. Okay, so I have something like this here. So in PyCharm, it's always required to leave two blank spaces before a function. So let me add another one here. So you can see the line has disappeared. Then after we have written this code, this is just defining it. So it means we have defined the code, but we need to, so the print statement is there, but without defining it, it won't give any output. So no, without calling it, it won't give any output. So it is defined now. So let's run this code and see. You shouldn't get any output here. Okay, so you can see there is no output here. So this is just defining a function, but to get the output you need to call it. So in calling it, you just bring the function name. So first underscore function. Okay, so simple. And Python also requires you to leave two blank spaces when you want to call the function. So first underscore function, that's the function name, then the parameter. So this is the parameter here. No, sorry, the parenthesis. Okay, so let's run this code. So hello world, so simple. So we can reuse this function in anywhere in your code by just doing first function, and so on. We can also store the output of the function in a variable. So something like let's say a word is equal to, let's say, first function, like this. Then you just print uh welcome, something like an f string. Then I will say welcome, then I will say curly braces word. So welcome, let me see, something like this. So let's run this code. So hello world, welcome, then I will say none. Okay, so I will explain the none in just a bit. So let's move on. So this is how to store it in a variable and reuse in your code later. Or let me remove, oh sorry. Okay, so I think that's that. Okay, so yeah, okay. So now we know how to, call our functions here. Let me see. Yeah, so we know how to call our functions in our we know how to call our defined user defined function. So simple. So that's how to define a function and call it. So simple. Now we move on to parameters. So as I said, parameters will be placed in the parentheses here. So before I move to the parameters, I'll have to treat the global and the local variables. So the global, and don't forget the codes inside the functions are all tabbed here. So Python by default brings you a tab here. So when you enter here, so when you are here and you just hit the enter key, it will just tap it here. So you can see the space here, but when you want to add a code inside here, so let's say I want to add this code inside this function, I will just tap it. So tap here, so it becomes part of my code here. So I'll just give it back. Okay, so now I'm done. Okay, so now we move on to global variable and local variable. So global variable, so the keyword global it means worldwide. So it can be used everywhere or it can be everywhere. That's the fair idea. So global means it can be used everywhere or it can be anywhere. So we know variables. So when we say a global variable, and we know that a variable is just a folder or a directory or something that stores data type. So when we say global variable, then it means a variable that can be accessed anywhere in your code. So when you just write x equals 3, x becomes a global variable because it can be accessed anywhere in your code. So it can be accessed inside a function like this. So let's print x here, x here. So let me run this code. So it can be accessed anywhere in your code. So you can see it's printing 3 here. So the x is a global variable, so it can be used in your for loop block, in your while loop block, it can be used in your if block, it can be used in the else block function, and so on. But the vice versa is the local variable. So the local variable is a variable which can only be used in a certain block which has been defined. So let's say I've defined a variable inside this function. So let's say something like x equals 3. Then I want to call this x equals 3, but it should be outside. So I want to call it here. So it's outside the function now. So print x. But wait, we should get an error here. Why? Because they are saying name x is not defined because the x here is just accessible in this function. So it's a local variable, so it's a community variable. Yeah, that's what we call it in. Yeah, so it can only be accessed in a specific block which is defined. So let's say I've defined an x inside an x variable inside an if statement or an if block, then that x will only be accessible in the if block. So the same applies to this first function. So it can only be applied inside the first function. Okay, so that's that for global and variable. But let's say I have defined a variable inside a function and I want to make it global. I want it to be used everywhere in my code. I just use a function called global. So simple. So I will just so the global function or the global keyword is used before or above the assignment. So let's say I'm assigning 3 to x, so I will just do global and the variable name. So the variable name is x, so global x. Then right now let's print our code and see what we should get. So you can see we are getting 3 here, so it has become global. So we have converted this x local variable to an x global variable. So simple. So when you want to convert a variable to a global variable, you just use the global keyword. So simple. So we can also convert to a local variable like this, local variable. Yeah, like this. No. It won't work. So it's only global variable. So like this. So I wanted to make you understand that it's only global variable. Okay. So when you want to convert from a local variable to a global variable, you just use the global keyword. Okay, so simple. Now we know the global variable and the local variable. Now we need to go to the parameters. Okay, so the parameters. So let me bring x here. Okay, okay. So then I will say y is equal to, let's say, 4. Okay, so let's say I want to do a simple math or a simple addition, let's say math here, addition math here. I just need two values. Let's say I need two values to add them. Let's say I need the x and y to add them, but I don't have it in my function. So let's say I want it to vary. So let's say at every time it will vary. So let's say when I call this function, I will say uh, first function, then I will say 3 comma 4 like this. So like add 3 plus 4. But this is the parameter I'm talking about. So these are, let's say, variables or data types. We can pass it in our function and we can use it in our function to do what we want the code to do. So let's say I want to add any number that the user will pass in this function. I will just define a parameter here. So I will just say first, or I would simply say y comma y, x comma y. So I have something like this. Then I will say print, or I will say result, result, or yeah, result is equal to x plus y. Okay, now what I will do is just print result. So print result. Okay, so something like this. So let me leave two blank spaces for Python to be happy, PyCharm to be happy, and this also. Okay, so I have something like this. So I'm saying that so the parameters are used inside the parentheses. So I've defined two parameters. So in defining parameters, when it is more than one, you just do the first one, comma, then the second one. We can have three here, so you can have another one. But when you want to bring another one, just bring the comma, then the z will also come here. So simple. Now we have defined our parameters and what you define your parameters with. So I define the first parameter as x and the second as y. That is what you will be using in your code. So I have a first function. So when you want to pass the parameters inside, so when I just leave it like that, you should get an error. So you can see there is a yellow bar covering the last or the ending parenthesis, but you have to pass a parameter here because it is required. Because once you have defined it here, then it becomes a required parameter. So now you just pass it. So you will pass two numbers, so just 3,4 here. Now we are saying that result is equal to x plus y. So the parameters coming, or what the user will input, so that is the x, then the y, or the 3 and 4 we are passing. So it will be 3 plus 4. Then we are saying print that result out. So when you call this function with these parameters, then it will add these parameters. So let's run this code. Okay, so you can see we are getting 7 here. So when you pass the parameter, then it will be replaced here. So the 3 will come and replace the x here, then the 4 will also come and replace the y here. So that's that for parameters. But this is just the introduction to parameters. In our next video, which is the detailed functions or the detailed section of function, that is where we will treat more about the parameters, where we learn about the arguments and so on. So that's that for the introduction to functions. So I hope you love this video. Just like it and share it to your friends. Subscribe to my channel to motivate me for more videos like this. I hope you are loving this course. So see you in the next video. So we will be treating the detailed functions in our next video. Thank you for watching.